Hi, Troy. Thank you for making time. Thank you for meeting us today. It's a pleasure to have a fellow American friend who also is crazy about NASCAR, does NASCAR news. Yeah, how are you? And especially, who are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. My name is Troy. I run the NASCAR hotspot on Instagram, and I'm just an avid kind of like NASCAR fan. I've really loved it since I was really young, and I mean all kinds of motorsports too. I mean, I mainly love NASCAR. Mainly follow NASCAR, but like IndyCar, F1, all the major motorsports. I just love to watch it. I love follow it. I love anything about it. Anything learn about it.
Yeah, you mentioned that you do a lot of NASCAR news on NASCAR Hotspot. You have reached 21,000 followers, and you provide daily update on NASCAR. You cover all three series. Is it like a full-time job for you right now? Is it like a hobby? How do you manage it with your daily
Uh,
tasks you have, if you will?
it's more like a hobby, it used to take up a lot of my time, but I've been running it for like 6 years, 7 years. So over time I've kind of been able to like perfect how to keep it as like a hobby and not let it kind of like take over too much of my life. So kind of have a lot of time to do other stuff and it's not taking up too much time. But at the same time, I do try to put a lot of time in it. I don't really like to put out like easy posts or whatever. I kind of like the detail of it and putting a lot of information out. So I mean, some of it can take up a good bit of time, but I kind of figure out kind of designated time for that. It doesn't really take up too much of my time.
All right, cool. So you got your process and your news sources all organized, so you don't have to dig deep for every bit of information. So how would a typical day look like? I mean, we're doing making something like this as a hobby as well, but how do you do handle this with work, with college, or whatever? Uh, do you do it in between? Do you have a time frame for it or something?
Yeah, so during the week, I'm pretty slammed with between college and work. So I never really have time to put out anything unless it's like, later at night. But usually I designate like Saturdays and Sundays. I'm usually doing nothing but watching racing, hanging out. So that's when I really kind of like go to work and kind of put together posts and everything. And Instagram recently added a scheduled feature where you can schedule posts. So I'm kind of taking advantage of that. So I used to have just like 10, 11 posts scheduled and stuff like that. Just kind of get a jump on everything. So everything kind of looks clean. So yeah, Saturdays and Sundays work kind of all the work gets done. In my notes app on my phone, I do have like a huge list of just like ideas and like different kind of posts I want to post for different weeks depending on the track. So I kind of it's a lot less kind of like digging of like what I want to post. It's kind of already there. I made it before the season started, so all I have to do is kind of take it, make it into a post, and it's a lot easier in that sense. I've been doing that for like 3, 4 years where I kind of have it all listed up, so it kind of saves me a lot of time.
Yeah, sounds awesome. Um, but we got, of course, we got the question why NASCAR. The good question is for us is we ask ourselves all the time because it's not a local sport and coverage is like shitty over here. But it's for you. Why NASCAR? Why are you a fan of this sport? And do you have a favorite driver, track, or track type, or one something?
Yeah, so my dad and my grandpa have always been huge fans of NASCAR. So it's kind of one of those things where I just kind of grew up around it. I grew up watching it. So I mean, it was only a matter of time before I kind of caught the bug. Um, I've been going to Daytona for years. So it's kind of just like one of those things that like when your family is around it and is always talking about it, you kind of just get caught up in it. And yeah, it's been really cool. I went to my first race when I was 5, and then I've been kind of just hooked since to it. It kind of really helped me get into it. And then for my favorite driver, I've always been like a Chase Elliott fan. It's kind of basic, but I've always loved Chase. My family used to be a Dale Jr. fan, so it was kind of just the natural switch from Dale Jr. to Chase Elliott when he retired. And it's been a pretty good time being a fan of him outside of last year, but things are turning around. Um, Favorite track? I grew up in New Jersey, which is like East US, below New York. So I was like 3 hours from Dover, Delaware. And that's probably my favorite track. It's kind of like an underrated one since, the races aren't like insane there. But I really enjoy like the how unique it is and the like strategical aspect of it and how challenging it is. And I think I really love Dover as a track. I've been there 2 times. That's probably my favorite track on the schedule.
I think at this point we can make a cut because you mentioned Chase Elliott, and I'm known here for I don't in the German community. I'm known for that I don't like Chase Elliott.
Yeah, a lot of people have different views on him, and in all honesty, he's not the most flashiest and the most interesting driver, but I like him. I like kind of how chill and laid back he is, and I mean he does it all on the track.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta ask, what do you say about JJ Yeley? Are you also a fan like I am?
I've always respected JJ Yeley.
See?
I think he is way overdue for a competitive ride, in my opinion. I mean, he had one in the beginning, but now he's like old and kind of more matured and in his driving style. So I mean, it's unlikely, but I feel like he should get like some kind of like one-off ride or whatever, just to kind of like prove himself. Because whenever he's in a bad mid-tier ride, he's always does pretty good with it. He always does better than what's expected, in my opinion.
I'm still trying to figure out who in the German language countries is also a JJ Yeley fan because still think that I'm the only one. I don't know if I think I told you that I would, even if he wins one NASCAR race, doesn't matter if he trucks the Xfinity Cup, I would do a tattoo of it. I know it's crazy, but I tried to get the attention. Maybe one day he wins, and maybe I'm lucky enough to get an autograph. But who knows? I think he's 48, so I think. How old are you?
I'm 19.
19.
Yeah, I'm 19.
I'm 23, and the grandpa here is beyond.
Oh, fuck you.
He still went to school with dinosaurs. How so old he is?
Yeah. But they're very good colleagues. They could carry a lot,
Yeah. Sorry. Obviously, back to business. I should say, Cup, Trucks, Xfinity. All of the three series have their unique style. You mentioned that you're a fan of Chase Elliott, but obviously you also watch the other two series. I don't know if you also watch ARCA or not, but what of the three premier series is your favorite and why? And hanging on to that, what do you see in the future for those three series? Looking at young talents, young drivers, hot prospects.
Yeah, I think Xfinity has always been kind of like my favorite, especially with the direction like NASCAR's moving the Cup Series, where it's kind of more at the Gen 7 and stuff like that. So it's kind of less of like a natural kind of feel to it. So the Xfinity still has like a really skill-based car where you can adjust it a lot, and it's really based on like the team building it and the driver's talent. I've always loved the Xfinity for their cars. I mean, their schedule is less diverse than it used to be with like one-offs compared to Cup, but I've always enjoyed kind of like their like trips like Portland and stuff like that, where it's kind of like their own thing. Yeah, Xfinity is the best. I mean, you have a mix of like the young drivers coming up, and then the old seasoned veterans that might already race in the Cup Series or used to race in the Cup Series. So I mean, it's a really good mixed bag of drivers, and I mean there could be like 15, 20 drivers that could win weekly. I mean it's really fun to watch all the time. I don't think it's very rare that you see like a boring Xfinity race. I mean, the future of it's always good. I mean, there's a lot of really talented drivers and trucks in ARCA right now, and I mean, some drivers that we probably never heard of that'll be in Xfinity car in like 2 to 3 years that might be dominating the sport. So I mean, it's always really interesting to see because I mean, one week you might not know someone, and next week he could be winning or running up front or whatever. So Xfinity, hands down. I've always loved it. And I wish NASCAR kind of took some cues that they use in Xfinity series and kind of put it in Cup a little bit because I don't know, man.
Yeah, cup races are kind of streamlined. Xfinity is more natural, more excitement and movement inside it. Plus, they have at least 5 lug nuts, which is
Yeah, that too. Yeah, I forgot about the lug nuts for a second, but yeah, the lug nuts, that's kind of a big part. I'm not the biggest fan of like the one lug nut in Cup, but I'm getting used to it. It was something to adapt to in the beginning.
yeah. I think NASCAR said they will they will learn to love it or something like that on the line. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Xfinity, a bag of veteran and young drivers all bunched together, but also international drivers like Shane van Gisbergen, who yesterday won in Portland. How do you feel about that? You know, even an all guy who made an impressive start at the 600 in Cup, now subbing for Larson. Um, what is your take on NASCAR going internationally and handling with the veteran drivers or older drivers coming from outside the US into the sport and bringing all the attention and mixing up all the racing?
I've always been a big fan of it. I mean, we had a boom kind of like this in like 2000s, with like, you know, Montoya, Fittipaldi, Carpentier, had all drivers from all over, Ambrose too. And I think it's good because we're kind of seeing it back. You know, of course you got SVG, Daniel Kvyat. He made a couple of starts lately. So I think it's really good for the sport because obviously you got a lot more eyes on them too. I mean, I bet we got a lot more people from Australian supercars watching NASCAR now. And you know, even like look at the highlights, stuff like that, and following it. So I mean, it's kind of like a win-win situation, where it's not just like American drivers anymore. Now there's people from all over. It just makes the series look a lot better, a lot more diverse, a lot more competitive. It's really, really nice.
Yeah, I mentioned the supercars in Australia. You know, Cam Waters coming over now for Sonoma. Will Brown also. Brody Kostecki was there last year, so 4 drivers within 2 years. Do you think we will see more supercars driver coming to NASCAR and vice versa? Maybe some of the NASCAR drivers trying out supercars. I mean, one of the NASCAR or road ringer legends like Boris said tried out supercars once. Do you think they will be going back and forth, if you will, to try out the other side of the planet Earth?
I don't really know if like any NASCAR drivers are really good or are doing supercars, and if they do, I feel like it's kind of a one-off at maybe like Bathurst or something like that. You know, I feel like guys like Austin Cindric or AJ Allmendinger or something like that would love to, but I don't really see any drivers that are in Cup right now that would kind of go over there and make the switch. But when it comes to like Australian supercar drivers going to NASCAR, I feel like it kind of depends on what the other drivers do that are kind of making their debut this month. I feel like it kind of depends on what they're doing to kind of see how it really stacks up. Because I mean, SVG could just be kind of like a one guy thing, you know, where he was just really talented and it just kind of works out. While other drivers, I mean, may not work out in the series. So I mean, we never really know until we see it. I feel like if it'll really work out and if it'll be a trend in the long run.
would be a tight scheduling for a NASCAR, for a full-time NASCAR driver to go to Australia and back. So like 2 days flying, 4 days worth of jet lag, and then driving a car.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Back to the US on the racetrack, you said Dover is more like your home track, the Monster Mile. Obviously, you had you passed some moments on the racetrack. You have also been, I think, to Indianapolis this year. But what was your most memorable moment on the track? The one you say you will never forget because it was so special, depending on which series it was.
There's a good bit. I mean, I've been to I think 7 or 8 different tracks, but I've been going to Daytona 500 for 7 straight years now. And I think the first time I went was 2018, so it'd be 6 straight years. 2018 was the first time I went. Austin Dillon won the 500. I think that race was probably like my favorite ever watch, just because, I mean, it was my first time at Daytona, and the whole race was just really, really good. You know, you had a lot of long runs, a lot of strategy, a good way to crash in the end, and then the finish was just like insane. I think that might be up there for one of my favorites. And then like the 500 this year, in my opinion, was like might be like the best race when it comes to like when it comes to just like the racing product that we got. There were so many lead changes. It was so competitive. There was not many cautions, stuff like that. So like in the stands, it was like really, really intense. I loved the kind of like how no one was really being stupid in a sense. Everyone was kind of racing smart. Everyone get to the finish, and at the finish, I mean, there's so many guys that could have won that. It was really, really, that was a really good race. I mean, I really enjoyed that. That's probably like top 2 of the 500s I've been to. Yeah.
Do you understand when fans in the media sections, a driver wins a race and then they call out the racer, it was so bad race, it was so shitty, all like that. Do you understand it, or are you like, man, just enjoy the race, just be thankful that there was a race, they're trying their hardest, be grateful from time to time? What is your take on that?
I'm a lot like, I feel like easier when it comes to judging races compared to other people. Because a lot of people, I mean, I've seen a lot of people like say, "Oh, that's a bad race," to races that I honestly enjoyed. I mean, as long as it's kind of like fairly competitive and there's a lot of just like good racing. I mean, like, I can't ask for much more than that. That's kind of what I sit down and watch. I mean, I go back to the 500 this year, of course. I mean, I loved it. I was obsessed with it after it was done. And then I saw people that were kind of like bashing him, like, "Oh, that was bad. I mean, they couldn't get more than 2 wide and everything." It's like, do you see like the lead change count? And there wasn't many cautions. How many drivers had a chance at the finish? It's like, it's one of those things that you just don't understand some people's views sometimes.
Yeah, totally understand it. I mean, it's like the fan base of NASCAR is like really. There are a lot of people, and I don't know. It's quite often that you hear that, "Oh, it's rigged by NASCAR because," and I think, yeah, well, okay, your driver didn't win, but just enjoy the show. Obviously, I have my own favorites, but enjoy the show. That's why we're here. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you as a fan, you as a media guy, there's a third party in NASCAR, the team side. Have you ever worked for a team in a pit stall, anything like that?
No, but that's kind of the goal of mine. I'm going to school right now in Ohio for to kind of learn kind of like the ropes to that stuff, and hopefully soon be on a race team. I'm working a pit crew or work on like the engine building side and stuff like that. So that's kind of like the dream, kind of like end goal of mine soon, is to kind of work in that environment. Since I've always looked up to it. I'm honestly never going to be a driver. It's way too late for that. So I really want to like be in a spot where I could decide a race in a way, you know, where like my work really impacts the race and impacts an event and stuff like that. So I mean, that's kind of where I want to be soon. And I'm kind of looking to see what opportunities are out there. But for right now, no, I don't really have much really experience doing that stuff, rather than kind of watching and talking to like pit crew members about their experience and kind of just like learning a little bit from not actually doing it.
So have you already tried to reach out to one of the teams for, maybe being there for 2 weeks, trying to get some experience, help them with minor works or anything like that? So just to get the first touch of it, if you will.
Yeah, there's a program at my school where I've been looking into it, and I was kind of just seeing if it works out with my job and school and everything. But there's a club that kind of helps you train to be a pit crew member, and from there you could have internships and stuff like that in ARCA. And I know a couple kids who do that and will hold like the pit sign at a pit stop, or will actually do like the tires and stuff like that. So I mean, the opportunity is right there. I just got to kind of put the work into it and kind of get the connections and just get there. But yeah, I haven't really like reached out too much yet, but I mean, I could. There's the opportunity.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's cool. It's providing such things. Can't imagine that we could learn French or something, but nearly not that exciting.
I mean, I can tell you from my roughly 2 years I did for Euro Series team, because we have also NASCAR over here in Europe. It's a hell of a joy if you do it. It's like you can't imagine anything better like it. Yeah, I mean, it can be stressful and there can be heated moments, but at the end of the day, you don't want to do anything else anymore because it's that cool. It's that, yeah, how to say it? You can't even describe it. The word for it is missing. So cool. It's really something you should try and do, because it will help you going along the way in either way. Doesn't matter if you go back, for example, say you want to go back in media or you want to stay with the pit crew for your rest of the career. It will help you either way. So I wish you good luck with that. But
you can't describe it because you're always high on fumes. So.
yeah, that's also, you will get high on fumes. So, but you living in the US, being there, first touch with the drivers or about the news, with all the media sources. Obviously, Bob is, I think, also in the US the number one source, as it is for us here in Europe. But what is it like to be in the daily news business of NASCAR, if you will, even in your position? What are like the pros, the cons? What do you like, what you don't like? Maybe also in a way of being the first one to bring out the new breaking news. For example, this driver moves to this team and such on.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, and I've always had like Bob Pockris. You mentioned him and stuff like that. He's big. I've always had his notifications on Twitter, so like when he tweets something, I'm kind of ready. But usually like a driver switch, most of the time, I mean, you see the rumors leading up, and you see that, oh, the team's making an announcement today. So sometimes I can kind of prep it and stuff like that, and kind of get in beforehand, a jump start on it. But sometimes, I mean, I'm not really too far into the media where like I know stuff before it drops. So I kind of gotta like always be ready, and sometimes I'll miss it, but most of the time I'm really like always on the mark with like make sure I get like the news out there when it drops, and make sure I kind of follow the rumors and where everyone's going and stuff like that, just so I'm ready, just so I kind of like do my job, on Instagram. Kind of that's when people expect what people expect me to do.
Yeah, you mentioned
that's like news gathering on social media. But do you have any, or do you think, or do you feel you have any? Some things are more easy because you are on site, or more like on site than, for example, we are. We're not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. I don't really know if there's really like a huge difference. Maybe like just time zone. I mean, I guess I don't know, but I don't really think there's like a huge difference when it comes to like being within kind of like the circle of it in Germany versus here and stuff like that.
I mean, as long as you're not traveling to each track and so on, it's yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like if you're traveling to like tracks and stuff like that, you're kind of more in the media side and you're in the media center every week and stuff like that. I feel like it's a lot easier because there's a lot of people that obviously know it beforehand and can put out news stories beforehand and write articles beforehand. I've never been to that point yet, but I mean, I've always hoped that, one day I'm kind of in that circle where I know stuff before it drops and I kind of get the head start.
Mm.
Yeah, head start or latest news. What is your take on the newest news, if you will, in the Cup Series in terms of Stuart Haas Racing? The team closing at the end of the season. One of the 4 charters is most likely sold to Front Row, even though neither party said anything about it. But it's given the charter situation. What is your take? What do you think? Where will go the other 3 charters, and where will we see the drivers of Stuart Haas Racing go? What is your thought?
I was pretty shocked about it. I mean, a lot of people leading up to like the last couple of months were like, "Oh, they might be selling like 2 charters." When I was like, "Oh, that makes sense." But then people would tell me, "Oh, I think they're gonna sell like the whole team, all the charters." And like, that's crazy. There's no way they would. But they did, and it's pretty crazy, honestly. Like a 4-car team that was winning a lot a couple of years ago is just like gone after the season. And I mean, they don't have like the most talented lineup, I guess. But I mean, there's a lot of quality drivers that right now have no ride and kind of like no future right now going into 2025. So Front Row Motorsports is gonna have one. I feel like that might go to like Briscoe or whatever. Briscoe might go there. I mean, I don't really know what their plans are for that, and it's kind of hard to gauge it because Gregson needs a ride, and I don't really know where he's gonna go, what's gonna be opened up.
He's bringing a big sponsor.
Yeah, he's lucky because he has like Bass Pro and a couple other sponsors. I think that's huge, and I think someone like Josh Berry, where he doesn't have that many like huge sponsors. I mean, he has like a couple little sponsors. He has Sunny D, a couple others, but like no sponsors that are really willing to like obviously sponsor like majority of a season, other than like 5 or 6 races. I think that would be hard for him. I wouldn't be surprised if, let's say, Junior Motorsports puts him back down in an Xfinity car and kind of gives him just like a second chance. Because I don't really think that many teams will really give him another chance in Cup right now, where everything is, and just kind of how things are falling.
He's pretty strong for a rookie. I mean, he's like driving top 10.
Yeah, he hasn't really done horrible, really.
No, but he, yeah.
Yeah, he's had his strong suits and his kind of weaknesses, obviously, on short tracks. I mean, he's shined, he's shown what he's worth, that he belongs in the Cup Series. But he's a rookie, and it's kind of just like bad luck because I thought that like Stuart Haas Racing hired him for like a long-term deal to kind of like develop him and bring him into like I mean, he can't be next Harvick, but their next like Harvick where they could have a veteran for years and years to come to help them with their other drivers. And I mean, it's obviously has not worked out, which kind of sucks for Barry and a lot of other drivers that probably thought that this was kind of like a good landing spot that wouldn't just shut down, suddenly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my take was on our latest podcast episode we did that Noah Gregson will actually even change the manufacturer and go to Joe Gibbs Racing because he also has Bass Pro behind him, and Truex does have Bass Pro. And given that, Truex is, a veteran who never told anybody or publicly if he's going to race 25 or not, that Gregson will take over the 19 with for 2025, and so get a ride next year. But we have within our community we have a lot of theories what is going to happen. I read the other day. I don't know if there's anything about it or not. Maybe you can tell me better. That Tony Stewart and Dale Jr. are working behind the scenes on getting DEI back in business with a one-car team. That is a news that popped up somewhere. I don't know if it's true or not. So maybe you can enlighten us how much bullshit there is behind it.
I haven't seen anything about that really. I don't think it's obviously really expensive to kind of get a charter and kind of bring a cup team, Xfinity team to cup. And I feel like Dale Jr. is smart right now where he's openly not been interested in like going to cup and buying Stewart-Haas's charter. And it's just not really, it wouldn't really work out for like his part because, his Xfinity team right now, that's not really like up to par. He's Brandon Jones, Sammy Smith. They're kind of struggling a little bit. Sam Mayer, he's usually up front. All guys are obviously like he's always up front, but I mean they're not really in the position I feel like to where they could also shift the focus to a cup team. And with all that brain stuff like that, I feel like that wouldn't be a smart idea. And I feel like Junior knows that and is kind of holding off, even though I mean there's 3 charters out there that I mean he could just pick up.
Didn't he even say last year that he doesn't want to have a cup team because it's not worth it, the stress, the work, whatever? Because it's something, I don't know why, but he said he didn't want to. Like and then talking with Tony Stewart is moving away from the cup like for the last 2 or 3 days. Yes, sorry. And I can't imagine that.
Yeah, I remember like it's kind of been obviously talks for years that Junior wants to move the cup and like that. But I mean, like I remember him saying in an interview a couple years. It's kind of like in the hands of like hundreds of employees too. So if like the cup team fails, then like he's kind of failing like hundreds of employees that he has and everything. So I mean, like where he's at right now, the Xfinity team, it's kind of like a smart play, kind of staying there for now. And I mean, maybe there might be kind of like a golden opportunity where everything kind of like is in the right spot, where he can move the cup and maybe have 1 or 2 cars. But for right now, I mean, like obviously not the greatest idea, and a lot of people want it, but at the same time, like I really want it. But it's not a smart idea. I mean, last thing I wanted to see Dale Jr. move the cup after, I mean, years of talking and everything, and it just kind of is a failure now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Then I would say, you mentioned golden opportunity. I think it's a good time to take a cut here and end the interview because I think you told us a lot. You mentioned a lot. Yeah, the disconnection is a great one. I'm so bad at making good passes to one topic from the other. But I think it was a good interview. I think you told us a lot, and I would say I thank you a lot for the time. And
Yeah, of
also,
course.